I've been a bit quiet for a while on this Arch Transmissions dumper transfer box. I've had some more important things to do, but the big reason of the two is that I've been waiting for some back-ordered parts to arrive. But it's still ongoing, and much to my amazement, it's still not been thrown in the scrap bin. On top of all the other things that were wrong with it, I found that this bearing housing here had worn, and that this bearing was loose and jingling around to an unacceptable amount. Because of the nature of this transfer box, where the chain is always pulling in tension down, throw onto that the drag of the parking brake, which tends to make the bearing want to go that way, and the whole had moved in that direction by a horrible amount. So to overcome that, the two halves of the transfer case have been bolted together, made sure they're in alignment. I've dial indicated on the bottom bore, which is good, and with this in the right position, this bore's been enlarged by 3mm, which allows me to put a steel sleeve in of 1.5mm wall thickness, which will put the bearing, or rather the nice new replacement bearing, back in its correct position, where it won't be jangling around and being useless. I'm also going to have to do something with this. Where the bearing locates on, this just holds the oil seal. This is similarly worn and shows to good effect how loose the bearing was in the housing, an unacceptable amount. This is made of 4.5-inch diameter bar. I might make a new one, or I might make a little sleeve to go in there in order to recover the original component. Having done some engineering forensics, it became clear that the original sprockets were made by welding a plate sprocket onto a 17-tooth involute splined boss. As mentioned in earlier videos, Arch Transmissions are absolutely long gone, but Wingit Dumper's parts department, whilst they didn't have the sprockets as an assembly, they did have these splined bosses, and they very kindly agreed to sell me some, which was awfully handy because I didn't want to think about trying to make those, and trying to find them online was a no. So very, very eventually some flame hardened plate sprockets have arrived with some other parts. These bearings are from Wingit at a reasonable price. Also from Wingit is this new shaft, which was also at a reasonable price. Unlike the old bosses, I turned a diameter on the new replacement bosses using the brand new shaft as a mandrel so that they ran true in the lathe. Turned a top hat section on there so that there was a shoulder for the new sprocket to go up against and be nice and true. And they were then assembled with an interference of around 2.5 thou on this diameter, which is I think 2.25 inches. I froze the boss and heated the sprocket, and they just about went together. Wasn't confident in welding them myself, so Emyr Hopkins down at EES Wales, down near Tregaron, very kindly welded them for me. Seemed to have got away without putting too much heat into the hardening. By testing with a file, they're still hard. And they're all running reasonably true. Length of new chain on, which also looks pretty good. But to my complete astonishment, this transmission has been designed that it requires a cranked half link to assemble. Really not ideal. If you look at chain transmission design guides, they say that crank links should not be used on heavily loaded or impulsive or high-speed drives, and this is all of those three. But we are where we are, so a cranked link is on order, and once that's in, this can go back together, leaving the only outstanding problem, which is the input spline where the parking brake disc attaches. Wingit dumpers unfortunately do not have the parking brake for this particular transmission, though they do have parking brake discs for other Arch transmissions, but just not this one. And once that's done, it can go back in the dumper and should hopefully feel not like going over a cattle grid in a vibrating roller as this did before it came apart. Hope you enjoyed the update of TDM. This has got to have been one of my most challenging transmission rebuilds, but it is getting there.